I want to focus a little bit here on the Internet of Things, something we've been hearing about for years. Indeed, some of that lead I could have talked about in any number of consumer product shows. What's new this year in this notion of Internet of Things?
Well, I think what's new this year is that we're seeing a variety of devices that we've never seen in the past get intelligence. I mean, I got press releases about smart toothbrushes and you know, anti-drowning bracelets that can tell if someone is drowning. I mean, we're seeing a range of stuff we've never seen before. But
I could have used it in my swim this morning.
Yeah, well, exactly.
It's not pretty.
The issue is, though, what we see happening is you've got a bunch of individual products. And really what people want, I think, is this idea of a connected home. But the reality is it's more of a disconnected home. In fact, I wrote a guest column it was in USA Today on Friday on this very subject, because the problem is you get one device and then it's got its own set of apps, and then you get another device and it's got its own set of apps, and there's no way of pulling all these different elements together. That's the big challenge I see.
Paul, how shall we, I've been to so many of these consumer electronics shows, and there's a sort of level of nonsense. I know, and the painfulness. And yet I also went when I was an investor, because there were sort of important data points that I was able to try to pull out of this. It wasn't just editors sending me because they didn't know what was going on, but they circled on their calendar. When you look at the Consumer Electronics Show, how do you separate signal from noise?
By not going, usually, is the best way to separate it. You know, you kind of the risk. The risk in going is the noise is so overwhelming that it's really difficult to kind of separate this incredibly splashy affair where someone launches, I don't know, a connected dishwasher from something that's genuinely signal, and you say, you know what, this not only has legs for this company, but it's actually going to cause problems for companies A, B, and C as well. We weren't anticipating that either this was possible or it was going to happen this quickly or whatever the case may be. And so it's really important with shows like CES to stand back and say, this has to have importance for an individual company, but in terms of growing a company and affecting its stock and all that other good stuff, it's got to also probably cause damage to other people. And so I kind of look at both of those. It's not enough to just have the novelty. It's got to be novelty with consequences for somebody else.
Well, and right now we're showing one of my favorite ridiculous connected devices, which is the connected refrigerator, which I've seen at CES. Again, year after year after year, someone comes out with a refrigerator with a screen that's connected that no one ever figures out how to use. But I think that there's something different when it comes to this Internet of Things right now, because of low-power Bluetooth and because of devices like some of the Nest devices, the Drop Cam and so on, that are acting as hubs and their ability to be controlled through either Android or the iPhone. Is this year different for connected devices and Internet of Things? Paul, to you.
I think so. I mean, I'm hugely optimistic about what's happening, and you just have to look at the sort of feverish pace of products with respect to wearables right now. I mean, I was looking. Your other guest mentioned one, and I'll mention another. This sort of idea of a sort of a Bluetooth wearable thermometer, so that helicopter parents and people who really want to max out on the whole helicopter parent thing can sort of monitor their kids' temperatures during the night. I mean, this seems absurd and crazy, but the point is that the notion that this is A, possible, and and B, you can sort of manage it with respect to power consumption is really important, because it suggests that wearables are going to quickly disappear and become part of the fabric of everything around you, and that's when the stuff becomes really interesting and important. Not that you've got another great big gadget hanging off your wrist. Or I saw another one today, which was a ring wearable, which looked like something that might eventually turn you into like Iron Man or something. It was absurd, but the idea is the really important thing. And so seeing all that sort of speciation happening with respect to wearable technologies, which are all these things we're talking about, is, I think, hugely important, and probably augurs well for Apple later in the year with the new watch products. So,
I thought if you buy shares of Tesla, you turn into Iron Man, but I may have misread the 10K. Bob, let me ask you.
So I'm told. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Bob, let me ask you. What makes it different this year? What makes it believable this year when it's been so unbelievable in years past?
Well, I think the point about wearables is a good one. I mean, what we're seeing with the wearable market is the fact that we've got a bunch of low-cost, pretty high-quality sensors that are bringing in a huge amount of information. I mean, one of the interesting things that I think we're going to start to see happening this year from this is this idea about big data about you. In other words, you can have big data about yourself because of all this sensor data between, health and fitness wearables and, for example, the thermometer wearable, all these wearables, environmental information. You combine that with all the tracking that's happening online, and all of a sudden you've got this big data mining opportunity about individuals. Now, that's scary on one hand, potentially an opportunity on the other hand. But I think the thing that's different this year, again, as I said, it's about the sensors and the quality of the sensors that are out there.
Paul, you mentioned the damage done. When I went as a money manager, what I would look for was just that, not new opportunities, but I'll give you an example. The firm that I went to work for was short shares of Garmin, which is, I think, actually a great company. But they had a product that I thought might be disintermediated by lots of competitors coming out of Asia. And sure enough, their personal navigation devices, I went around CES and found dozens of competitors that popped up in the market with similar technology. Is that something that's sort of useful to look for, is where other companies might feel pain?
Oh, I really strongly agree. I mean, I think that's, from the standpoint of an investor, that's really where to look. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with respect to which hot product's going to succeed. But seeing that someone is going to succeed and it's going to cause, have real consequences for someone else is really important. And Garmin is everyone's, great white whale or favorite whipping boy, you take your pick. With respect to someone who's inevitably going to see consequences, it's a great example. Look at, specifically, I see Garmin this morning announced 3 new wearable products, various watch products, which were really interesting, but in some ways are reminiscent of what happened in the early days of the PC industry. They're kind of standalone products in a sense. They run proprietary operating systems. They're really fascinating devices, but it looks inevitably like they'll be subsumed by what's happening either on Android or iOS with respect to these new mobile platforms that are emerging. And the days of proprietary, wearables are going to pass pretty quickly because it all has to be knit into the same fabric, and the economics just don't work as a proprietary vendor. So maybe this will finally be the year that Garmin sort of gets harpooned. I don't know.
Having actually bet against them, I'm not going to take that bet. Their sales are up on average about 11% each of the last 3 quarters. But let me ask you, how do you pick the losers when you go see these new products?
Well, I think the losers are going to be the people who try and do things that are a little bit too outlandish right now. Right now, we're in this amazing hype cycle around this stuff, and I think you're going to see some crazy promises and crazy things out there. And to me, those are the big red flags. And people are like, claim they're going to change the world dramatically. I think we're going to have to see some incremental changes here in order for these things to work. And let's not forget, when we talk about wearables, we've got the Apple Watch hanging off in the distance, right? And, another thing that is important about this year, I think, is that Apple gives credibility to a lot of markets. So when Apple enters the wearable market with their watch, that's going to give a little bit more credibility to the category in general. It's going to get more people looking at it, considering it. So those are also things I think we have to think about.